Yeah. I think the issue has pardon the faculty, Professor Rotimi, Olatunji-Bello, the former dean of this authority. And likewise, I want you to join me to welcome the head of department, public relations and advertising, Dr. Welcome, sir. Likewise, we have the product of last program, Dr. Jimoh, the panel in the speech. Yes, I want you to make that platform and give it a lie down. As we have the bill of Faculty of Communication and Media Studies, Professor Jimoh, you are most welcome. Thank you. Because we also have other scholars who have done so well contributing to knowledge impartition, as we have Dr. on the house. We also have Ms. Olatunji-Bello. Thank you. Yes, we are the newest, the latest, and Ms. Shukurat also in the house. Thank you, yes. I'm most welcome. Yes, we have journalists in the house. Our representative from this day newspaper is here, Mr. Angela. Yes, let's welcome you. It's right seated over there. Thank you. Our technician, Mr. Timothy, we have been working since yesterday to make sure that this event is successful. And of course, our world-class students. But first, I would like to recognize all the graduate students in the house. If you are working with semester, please let's appreciate them, all the postgraduates, the PhD students, and finally to our world-class undergraduate who are in the house. Please work on yourself, value yourself now, give yourself a proper words. And as we bring that, the head of department, broadcasting department, Dr. Omalade Sane is in the house. Many are welcome. All right, this is Faculty of Communication and Media Seminars 1.0. We've been having several seminars in the past. To be modest, this is not actually the first seminar we will be having. But when we talk about series, we will not break because it's now every last Wednesday of the month. We can say this is the first in recent time. So, what is the importance of seminar series? What are we going to learn? We will know all this as I will invite the father of the faculty, the chairman of this seminar, the former dean of the faculty, Professor Rotimi Olatunji to the podium. Please for round of applause for him. Okay, I just got the chairman takes over. The dean will have a word for us. So, which is the dean's record address. Please let's put our hand together for Professor Jide. I can't hear those hands, so thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olatunji, and I thank you and members of the committee and those who worked tirelessly to make this day a reality. What we are doing is to continue our seminar series. Indeed, we started this when we were in Surulere. And I'm glad that we are back. I was the one that presented the last seminar before we left Ojuelegba. So it's a thing of joy for me to see the continuation. So that, and what we want you to know is that by the grace of God, things has come to stay. Because we cannot imagine a faculty without this seminar series. Academic discourses, discoveries, perspectives, things that should come for scrutiny are usually first tested in this type of seminar. And so that is why, as we continue to make this faculty to be recognized and seen as performing its duty of academic excellence, of practical application of ideas, industry and academic contributions and collaborations. This is just one of So this is just a sick, but as we move forward, you know, in a university, it is not just academic.
We can no longer hear you, sir. We can no longer hear you, sir.
Okay, so to give us the is the former dean of the faculty and national president of Association of Communication Scholars and Professionals of Nigeria. That's a big word. Professor Rotimi and Olatunji. Please, we can do better than that. Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Before I assist anybody, let me just mention to me that Dr. Olatunji doesn't know that I'm a man of protocol, because that's what I teach and that's what I live by. When he was setting the agenda, I said after the introduction of the guest, then the day in records welcome address. So he said, no, it's the chairman. I said, what is the protocol? The protocol. I was not wrong, and that Dr. Olatunji has learned a lesson today. A round of applause for Dr. Olatunji. And that's what it should be. On this note, in faculty of communication and media studies, Professor Jide Jimoh. The first faculty of communication in the whole of Africa. That is who we have. No other university university in Africa, I'm not talking of Nigeria, started the concept of a faculty of communication distinct from other faculties. Thank God that when the first fathers were faculty, courage of the forefathers of the faculty of then called the School of Communication. First, Arowolo School of Communication, later shortened School of Communication, and now expanded to Faculty of Communication and Urban Studies. Top in Africa, platformers. So I salute Patriarch Professor Olasunkanmi, the first chief of the faculty. I salute now Professor Jimoh, who had retired at the attainment of the retirement age of 70. I salute the memory of Professor Jide, who meet the dean that had in 2014, and until I became dean, and with Professor Arowolo, who took over from me, and now has passed the best round of applause for me. So, Arowolo is sure that you'll be able to address us clearly. Don't mind our public address system. Now I would go through some reading of my speech. I welcome all the students and colleagues to this seminar series. The dean has appropriately backgrounded the seminar series to be holding in this Faculty of Communication. And it is to the credit of the late Professor Olasunkanmi that he made right to. Please let's give a clap of him to his memory. But my honor and privilege to chair today's session as the chairman of the occasion. And we are looking at a very topical issue that is intellectually compelling: property, politics, and the press. Media training, policy narratives, and democracy in Nigeria. Something that is spectacular about today's presentation is that the chick has come on to roast, meaning that one of our very own that we began to teach what is communication is the one that has grown into that big corporate today that is leading that discussion. Then Dr. Please let's give him a round of applause. He's going to be sharing with us from his doctoral thesis of nearly the same title, which he earned from the University of Kent. And something spectacular about that is that all of my years in LASU and even at the University of Ibadan, we have not seen in the Department of Communication and Language Arts, and here in LASU, and in other places where I had examined, I have never seen a PhD thesis with that. And it is to the glory of God and to the credit of Dr. Arowolo Olásúnkànmí that he bagged his PhD without any singular correction. But without a solid foundation, that could not have been possible. He earned his bachelor's degree from the Lagos State University his master's degree from the Lagos State University, and the PhD was just an offshoot and outgrowth of what we have started in LASU. Today's seminar finds what
I cannot hear him.
we are in Dr. Arowolo is our PAS that is misbehaving.
Oh, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So, why poverty remains one of the most pressing developmental challenges confronting us as a nation, media attention is often disproportionately devoted to entertainment. That's the professor and I that did something on entertainment media. That's Professor Jide, Jimoh, and I. Okay? Attention is often focused on entertainment, celebrity culture, gossip, and sensational political contestations. Political coverage itself is frequently dramatized, reducing issues to personalities, conflicts, and the rather than interrogating through the lens of policy substance and social impact. The implication is very clear. When property is framed superficially, episodically, and often invisibly, it weakens its salience on both the public and policy agenda. When political narratives are stripped of their developmental consequences, democratic accountability is undermined. And when press prioritizes spectacle over substance, it inadvertently shapes a public sphere that is less responsive to structural inequality and less demanding of policy solutions. This raises critical concerns about the role of media in institutional democratic accountability. If press is to serve as the watchdog, the mobilizer, and a platform for inclusive discourse, then its narrative choices must elevate issues of property and policies designed to address them. As we engage with Dr. Olásúnkànmí's presentation today, I would like to reflect on a number of thought-provoking issues, which perhaps the discourse will take care of. How do Nigerian media frame property? As a structural, policy-driven issue, or as an individualized and episodic condition? In what ways do political narratives in the press connect or fail to connect with the lived realities of property? What extent does commercialization of media, including the dominance of entertainment and sensationalism, part developmental agenda? How do ownership structures, visual routines, and digital algorithms influence property-related issues? And what is the relationship between media framing and property responsiveness in Nigeria's democratic process? I confess that I have not read the thesis of Dr. Arowolo, but I hope very much that we will address these issues. These questions underscore the intellectual and practical significance of today's seminar. It challenges us not only to critique existing media practices, but also to imagine transformative pathways for a more development-oriented and accountable media system. On this note, I want to welcome us once again and invite us to listen with rapt attention, to engage critically, and contribute meaningfully to the discourse. Thank you, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much. Please, I'm so grateful, sir. Please, can we appreciate Prof better? Thank you for that thought-provoking introduction, opening remarks. Quickly, before Dr. Arowolo, who is the presenter today, before he comes on stage, we will invite Dr. Olasunkanmi to take the citation for Dr. Arowolo. Please, let's make him welcome to the stage.
Dr. Arowolo, Dr. Olásúnkànmí, Sunday Arowolo, is a journalism scholar, educator, and digital governance specialist whose work focuses on the intersection of media, technology, and public communication. He is a lecturer in the Faculty of Communication and Media Studies at Lagos State University, LASU, where he has been teaching since 2017. Dr. Olasunkanmi Arowolo holds a PhD in journalism at the University of Poverty, Politics, and the Press, uncovering the complexities of media coverage of Nigeria's social investment among top tiers of doctoral work in the UK by the British Academy. The problem in 2020. The CRO, media technologies such as artificial intelligence for journalism and research communication. What reflects a how to engagement and knowledge production. He has taught and contributed to academic work across institutions in both the United Kingdom and Nigeria, and remains actively involved in supporting scholars, journalists, and students involving media and research landscape. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Olásúnkànmí Arowolo, round of applause.
Thank you very much for that, the welcome. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming in attendance. Our chief host, the Vice Chancellor of Lagos State University, distinguished Professor Ibiyemi Olatunji-Bello. Our host, Dean, Faculty of Communication and Media Studies, Professor Jide Jimoh. And our own father, very faculty father, Professor Rotimi Olatunji-Williams, the former president of Association of Communication Professionals and Association of Communication Scholars and Professionals of Nigeria. My honorable and amiable head of departments, and particularly my head of departments, Associate Professor Dr. Hassan Sulaiman, and other departments heads present, all other protocols well and duly observed. So I would like to ask a question, and this question is quite very important. How many of you would willingly participate in a social welfare program if you had no idea of how it actually operated? For over 65 years, the Nigerian government has tried an unbelievable 22 different social welfare programs, each one of them promising to lift people out of poverty. Yet, every year, many are still ultimately falling into such poverty. Earlier this year, the Nigerian government was forced to actually rekindle the NSIP, but last year it was suspended, and this is the most ambitious social welfare initiative to date. The multi-billion naira National Social Investment Program was suspended amidst widespread allegation of misappropriation, diversion of funds, and systemic corruption. Imagine pouring your trust, your hard-earned taxes into a government program only to watch it collapse under the weight of mismanagement and graft. That's the harsh reality faced by many Nigerians for over the past 6 years, 6 decades. Now, as journalism, media, and communication researcher, I had investigated this particular case scenario. I have looked at the previous programs, and all across the social welfare program that has been initiated, executed, delivered, failed, and still ongoing. According to literature, I could trace that ineffective communication is a key problem leading to mismanagement, and lack of accountability remains a problem. I'm Olásúnkànmí, like you know, and my PhD thesis has authoritatively examined the role of traditional media, social media in the context of national social investment in Nigeria, particularly the role of press, X, formerly known as Twitter. To unravel this complex issue, I employed mixed method approach. Content analysis of 4 Nigerian newspapers, critical discourse analysis of conversation on X, and a triangulated in-depth interview of professional journalists who have reported on this program. This yielded a comprehensive understanding of findings. My findings shows that Nigerian press have heavily favored government narrative, which I'm going to give you more details about in a few minutes. Silencing public voices. And X, the Twitter platform, has exposed marginalization, manipulation, politicization, while journalists cited constraints in reporting these issues. So my thesis, which an aspect of it you'll be listening to today, highlights the urgent need for social welfare policy reforms in Nigeria. And I'm advocating for a balanced media, empowered marginalized voices, and democratic accountability to combat poverty, mismanagement, and lopsided media coverage. Now, let's begin. The context. Let's start by recognizing that poverty is not merely a material condition. It is a constructed narrative. As globally cited, emerging scholars in the media, particularly media framing, they have asserted that powerful mediators exert powerful influence on people. And this shapes public understanding of poverty, policy communication. Policy communication is inherently a political strategy, influencing what the public perceive as visible or as prioritized. Now, communication remains a strategy. Now, I've looked at the National Social Investment Program, which was launched in 2016. It represents Nigeria's flagship poverty alleviation initiative. It encompasses Empower, conditional cash transfer, GEPP, which includes trader money, farmers money, and other kind of programs that they put under it. And then we have the last one, homegrown school feeding program, which was highly emotionalized. Now, what's my problem? The problem statement. There's been a persistent, poverty despite multiple interventions, like I've earlier incited. Despite this numerous intervention, poverty endures in Nigeria. In my assessment, media coverage remains consistent, inconsistent, episodic, and politicized, answering the question posed by the chairman of the day. And we have insufficient scrutiny of how this narrative impacts public perception and accountability. My research rigorously examined how media coverage frames social investment programs in Nigeria and its implication for democratic accountability. Now, I asked the question, how is poverty represented in the media? What dominant frames shape reporting on social investment programs? And to what extent do this narrative enable or constrain accountability? These are key questions we should ask. And these are the questions professors and scholars have earlier posted. Now, I draw on a few theories: framing theory, political communication theory, development communication theory. I emphasized that framing does not merely represent reality. It actively shapes interpretation. Not only that, it also determines how we think and the direction of what we think about. You know, framing theory is the second level agenda setting theory. Agenda setting theory sets the agenda, tells you what to think about. Framing theory tells you how to think about what he has actually proposed to you to think about. You see how much of influence that theory's got. It has actively shaped interpretation, legitimizing or delegitimizing policy. The media function as both watchdog and also as agenda setter. Now, I draw on these theories to make meaning, to explain, and to discourse, to interact with content in newspapers, discourse on social media, and in fact, ask the journalists who have actually reported on this story. I employed a very interesting method, I would say. It evolved over the period of 2+ years. Qualitative content analysis, and that involved qualitative content analysis itself, and then I included quantitative aspects of it too in my analysis. So my critical discourse analysis is a major point of contribution where I introduced an hybrid model of conducting CDA research. I looked at previous scholar strength models and meshed the strengths of two models together, giving me an hybrid model. This hybrid model provides something special and unique. I selected key national media outlets like you observe for content analysis, focused on policy implementation during the periods that matters, and through thematic coding and framing identification, I analyzed and discussed the pattern across that list. The time frame actually covered the period of the start up to the time of the submission of my thesis. Now, what does this model look like for CDA, which is unique to this study? This is what it looks like. You may not see this clearly, but I'll make the image available later. It's something worth replicating generally. With this particular method and approach, I was able to interact with the text. There are enormous texts online, definitely, but through strategic sampling scientific method, I was able to narrow that down and remains unquestionable. Putting it into image, it looks like this, which I will also make available. This is the first time it's making public appearance. So I strongly recommend I pay close insights. We'll pay a close look at this to use it. Now, let's move on. This is what my data set looked like, retrieving them on X, enormous in their thousands. But moving forward, there are key frames that I identified. I haven't looked at all of these things. My research identified 4 key frames. Responsibility frame. This is where you have government versus citizens. The government are framing it a certain way, the citizens are framing it a certain way. Now, the second level is the success frame, which of course comes from the government. The government often emphasize all of their success story, allocating several billions, allocating this and that, just to look good. Then we have the failure frame in the newspaper, emphasizing inefficiency and corruption, and the human interest frame, which is the individual stories. Now, the next thing I would like to share is how, as this program, like poverty itself, within the context of NSIP, National Social Investment Program, which is targeted at people who are underprivileged, people who can afford to live a minimum standard in Nigeria. I found that the media have frequently oversimplified poverty into episodic events, individual stories, and with very limited contextualization. They only report it when they want to talk about it, when it favors them. And in fact, the program itself was introduced because of a reason that was traced back to electioneering process. I wouldn't want to dwell much on that, but we'll figure that out soon. I stress the need to distinguish between episodic and thematic coverage. Thematic will look at things within a thematic context. Episodic will only single it out and report it within a particular interest, interest idea, or sort of, I'll describe it as within a particular setting, context, meaning, and predefined agenda. Now, emphasis on this episodic is so endemic that over 90% of the stories were episodic. There was none of them that was thematic and looking at issues in the holistic form. None was sincere about tracing the past, looking at the present, what they are doing, and also helping the government understand the reality going forward. I interestingly found a situation where 2, 3, or 4 newspapers syndicated the same content with just bylines different and slightly different headlines. These were the bad insights. I'll be sharing some data with you soon. This is what it looks like. We'll see something here that it is elite-centric. Where is the news coming from? Mainly from North Central. And we know the seat of power is in Abuja. And majority of the stories were sourced through press statements. One voice, one narrative. And the striking thing about this is that there is a capital charter which ignores the village despair, disconnects deadly, total disconnect from the reality. This speaks to the slide which I will present on journalist perspective on what they think about this. The next data shows you who are those who are actually speaking. The sources mainly quoted in the story. I will say government sources across all the newspapers, being oppositional or even those who are for the government of the day. You'll see the second newspaper there is The Nation, which is the sitting government. It explains clearly how much of content they put out there to frame the mind of the people. We see official spin rules here. True poverty voices muted across all platforms. And then looking at this data here, press release remains the dominant thing there, and interpretive reporting was very minimal, except for Daily Trust, which did justice to that. And then that was followed by the Punch newspaper with the color blue. Now, handout journalism remained persistent. Policy PR, always there, not poverty probing. Democratic accountability in question. Now, have a look at this. I looked at the tones of the story. What does it look like? It is inherently positive, as we can see. We have cynicism, killing hope, and press poison policy trusts. You know, the policy document in itself is not available. When I asked the journalists, when was the last time you visited or revisited the policy, despite the fact that you report this routinely? Said it was the first time. Why? Because his hands are tied and he can't question things from the policy. And in fact, it is not available on the website. At different times, the public website was down at different times, which is not meant to be so. So this is what it looks like. We say critical, very low, and unidentified tones were also there. Having a look at this, we'll see more data, which I wouldn't want to speak too much into. Government field frame increased. That is effective design and planning that's coming from their own very own newspaper. This is still a situation where there is a theft of narrative and it has implication for policy. Right. So moving on to this particular slide where it shows the positive dominant frame, we see that there are no positive dominant frame clearly identified, except for the emphasis on we have designed this to do this, we have designed this to do that. Now, moving on, we see this. Negative teams identified. There were no clear-cut negative because they were highly dependent on press release. You see, no negative team identified. The ones that have some team is lack of transparency being mentioned by opposition newspaper. There is breakdown, inefficiency amplified, reformed, blocked by bad stories. I will speak to this in later slide. All right. Now we see information, just information, no advocacy, no education. The media refuse to play significant roles of being an advocate. Attack is greater than aid. Media, they were tearing down things because they were aligned with the power that wants to control what people know. This doesn't build up things, which is an area I will look forward to doing. And then the lastly, is how the media frame the message. Responsibility were there, and there were quite a lot of non-identified frames that we can categorize into existing frame, which will drive my future theoretical papers on framing theory. So there is blame game, as we can see it here. Citizen blaming the government, governments blaming the citizen for not positioning themselves to receive help. We see a citizen split unbalance and a situation where the governments have invested so much, but yet they don't have data to understand or to even design a policy. They don't understand the people who they are designing program for. Okay, political influence. Let's take a look at this. Media narrative have clearly, from my data set, shows that media narratives are aligned with political cycles, selectively amplifying success and diminishing critical depth. This decisive decision shapes public understanding and public policy legitimacy itself. It reduces authenticity of their intent and credibility of the program itself. There is an accountability gap. This is a weak investigative. I found this weak investigative depth in the data set. It shows that there are limited follow-up, minimal policy interrogation, and the gap critically undermines media's watchdog role. They became a lapdog instead of becoming a watchdog. But for what they know how to do. You see headlines like this. The first one shows a situation where the government said, oh, they've 2.6 billion, 6.2 billion school feeding scam. Now, this is just an elusive, straightforward, no particular framing headline showing what they are doing. You see, 2 billion naira, where is it going to? And it comes to my community and I didn't benefit. And recent data shows from World Bank, in fact, it was deleted few days after it was published. I don't know what played into that, but some of us have opportunity to have such data. It shows that Nigeria has gone further into poverty than we were over 5 years ago. And we see several money being put into feeding children. But I don't know how many in your community have benefited from all of these things. For example, we can tell from this headline what is omitted versus what is highlighted in media coverage. Findings. Like I've earlier signposted, NSIP coverage is dominated by governance and corruption, inefficiency in teams, and the tone is predominantly skeptical, critical. At online dissenting voices shows that each time there are stories published, when tweeted, they engage it. I live in this community, nothing has happened. I have been in this community for several years and there has not been any help of such. And I asked randomly people from selected community, they confirmed that nothing has been to their place. So we have a government planning, assigning money and a lot of other things. However, it is never getting to where it's meant to get to. So their tone online remained very skeptical. Well, I found an evidence of governments making efforts to hire social media influencers to amplify their thoughts. So this has become a serious issue that has affected and reduced the impact of the program itself. And the media has not done anything significant to help and amplify the voice of the public as they constantly quote government sources. On X, like I've referred to earlier, discourse remains dynamic. It features skepticism and supporters also amplifying their voice, beneficiaries, both fake and original, talking about it, and critics right there amplifying their voice through where they can make their voice be heard. Social media serve as a digital public sphere, and I conceptualize it as Nigerian Twitter sphere. This will be presented in June in South Africa at the International Communication Association Conference 2026 in order to establish this reality. Social media continues to serve as a digital public sphere, amplifying voices via hashtag, viral stories, and mobilization. This has continued to be the reality. I have some excerpts to share with you before I draw this lecture to an end. This is what it looks like. Vote buying was one of the things. 10,000 naira collateral free loan that mostly will never be repaid. Is this the best way to revive the economy, or is this a vote buying strategy hidden under state aid scheme? Why Osun? Why near election? Why is government introducing such idea during electionary period? This becomes a question. We have other tweets in similar vein. Let's call a spade a spade. This is vote buying. Now, I'll just keep this other tweet because of our time. You can do the right thing in the wrong way and at the wrong time. Sometimes positioning the right agenda at the wrong time may further impart the trust that the public have on you. Now, speaking with journalists confirm with me that their hands are tied. They rely heavily on official documents, and they also face the barriers to independent sources. And in a situation, I remember a journalist confided in me and shared that where he tried to question the source, they asked, don't we give your organization adverts? Do you want us to cut that off? That's a threat. He said, well, this doesn't have to do with adverts. It's about questioning how public funds have been spent. These questions continue to linger on. We've experienced many journalists maimed, threatened, and some killed. In fact, a distinguished former and alumni of our faculty, photojournalist Yinka Adeparusu, in the course of trying to uncover the truth, was also killed. All right. Alongside other political pressures, resources constraints remains part of the things, and objectivity challenges were still persistence. We have more quick tweets here. We can always go back to this to look at it. But these are some excerpts from my work. And bringing things to gradual close, media continue to act as agenda setter, watchdog, determining not only public priorities, but also policy implementation trusts. For the democratic accountability aspect of this lecture, I'd say a free press is indispensable, is very important for government accountability. Civil society needs to rise up and also speak more through different platforms as much as they can have access to. Established theirs who may have concerns about proliferation, but that shouldn't be the case. The case should be, is the truth being told? Do the public have access to it? And in fact, we'll still have a challenge of how to reach the poor of the poor, because the poor of the poor are unable to access the social media because of the high cost of data. This is still a gap that this research is still looking forward to identify and see how radio is playing any role in reporting this. While investigative reporting exposes corruption, it remains perilous. The accountability gap persists. Journalism therefore requires deeper analytical reporting. Shifting from episodic to thematic coverage, policymakers must prioritize transparency. Academia must drive interdisciplinary research, bridging both theory and practice. Now, stronger research practitioner collaboration is necessary to ensure that evidence informs reporting. Without this, we'll just be reporting in the limbo, reporting without data, reporting without facts. And in fact, when it's time to fact check, the question is, where do we draw the data for the facts? What do we check it against? We need to start keeping data. All right, future works will explore how AI-driven media analysis will shape things. And I'll be involving comparative African media system and looking at poverty in other African countries and how it is working and relating with the present reality. I've currently put together an idea which I sort of presented at AMCRON conference last year, where we have integration of blockchain technology and artificial intelligence. If you know blockchain technology, it is a technology that is immutable. You cannot change whatever that you have inserted. Whatever that has been confirmed to be truth will remain truth. And because it has been established as truth, you can't change it. Any future story or publication will check into the data that has in the past to confirm or to verify the authenticity of the latest information. However, financial constraint remains the challenge because of the cost of token, AI token, blockchain token for each transaction. All right.
I'm going to think of something. John, and I can use that as feedback.
Okay, I think we have a voice there. All right. So now, media continue to enhance how sources are presented, and they have the control over what they publish. We need to improve access to independent sources, encourage investigative journalism, rural reporting, grassroots reporting, because the absence of this had led to the absence of their voices in the media, and we cannot verify what the press statement claims and the national media claims. And this we can do to enhance transparency and to ensure that communication from the government is cross-checked and validated. And what becomes the public knowledge we can be sure that it is what it is. Government must prioritize transparency above all. For policy making, the implication of this study ensures that there are workshops that are already designed and being vetted by my supervisory team here in the UK where I did my PhD. Policymakers, they engaged the media, and we're meant to ensure that the policymakers are working closely with the media in positive light, in such a way that they are engaging and they are fostering transparency. So trainings has been designed as a workshop, both for lecturers who will be delivering special courses, and I'll be pushing forward and advocating for social welfare reporting as a course, because it is an endemic, a serious problem that has lingered too long in the history of Nigeria since independence. We'll be engaging media transparency, and journalists themselves will be trained on how to do these things, how to report it, how to balance the story, even in the face of challenges. And we'll also put forward public communications on how the media can engage with social media reports. Conclusion. Media narratives define poverty, like I've rightly said, and the framing itself. Policy understanding. Effective framing demands balancing. Critical reporting is needed for accountability, especially for poverty reduction. My scholarship therefore underscores that this imperative, this scholarship therefore emphasizes the need for democratic progress. So you have an opportunity to ask questions. The QR code, the links will be made available, and I'm going to be sharing that too. And we have all of this discussion to have. So thank you very much. I'm with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Another round. We have opportunity for Q&A.
Yes, sir.
Thank you so much. So let's give Dr. Arowolo a round of applause. Thank you so much. We are very much grateful. When I was doing my PhD, the challenge was thrown at me. If you are not prepared for competition, don't go near a PhD. Because the end of your PhD is just the beginning of the real competition. The PhD just stimulates the world out there. You can see a PhD without correction, still laboring to pass his message across. And that is how it is in the world of reality. Another round of applause for Dr. Arowolo. I will not paraphrase his seminar, but rather I will bring out some areas of attention. As I was listening with my dean beside me, I was drawing parallel to the major discoveries of scholars ahead of Dr. Arowolo. Plans on government sources. These have consistently been proved to be the case. I did a paper on media and the environment, and I discovered, just like Dr. Arowolo, that media depend almost entirely on government sources for their information. This is what Dr. Arowolo's study has also proven. Secondly, we have seen the episodic reportage of issues around property. In other words, there is lack of consistent focus on issues of property in the middle. Future scholars like Jide, Jimoh, Olasunkanmi, and the rest of us have also shown that the reportage of issues have been so episodic and lack of consistency. Thirdly, something he made a point that I was just drawing the attention of one of my PhD candidates to today. The press agentry format of practice of PR, which is also evident in the reportage. What is press agentry? There are four models of PR practice. One is press agentry, which is just publish and be banned, regardless of whose interest is involved. We consistently have one way of information, and this is also seen in the reportage of property issues. And we have seen that issues of property are determined by power or powerful
Oh, I can't hear again.
You can just give us insight into what your lived experience against the groundbreaking findings. I'll pass it over to my colleagues. And thank you. Doctorate professors and colleagues, what I want in essence that from this lecture is that from this seminar is that things the corruption has been so endemic. Voters behind the right influence, corruption. How do we exact on the thinking of Nigeria, the government and the governance in order to reduce corruption? Corruption with property. Corruption with property, and how does this resonate with addressing the challenge? Yes, any more? Sir. My name is Ashad student, sir. So I want to ask Dr. Arowolo, how do we handle the issue of ethical dilemma? That is, we want to be at the side of the masses, at the same time, we are looking for the hammer of the government. Then we are especially in the case of investigative reporting. So how do we balance this reportage going by? We want to be at a problem. What do we do? Do we go inside of the people or we go inside of government without even taking any bribe? So that's my question, sir. Dr. Arowolo,
All right.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, professors, distinguished lecturers, and fellow students. My name is Olatunji-Bello. The major thing I just want to point out is that I don't know whether Dr. Arowolo looked at the media and poverty itself, because the media is also impoverished. I don't know whether we looked at a situation where the impoverishment of the media also affected the reportage. For example, he was talking about reliance on press statements and the reliance on government for some of the statistics that he got. But I must say that the media is also impoverished, and that would have also informed some of the epidemic reports that they do on poverty. I want him to take a look at this and tell us his reaction. Perhaps he got some statistics on that, sir. All right, thank you very much. My name is Andrew Iraga Oladokun, PhD candidate. This question, I'd like to pose it to Dr. Arowolo. You know, he talked about many salient issues, topical issues pertaining to poverty. Poverty in Africa is endemic, it's widespread. Of course, he talked about selectively, amplifying successes, particularly during electioneering periods. You have the minimizing of investigative debt. He also talked about minimal policy interrogation, and he talked about the dereliction of the media in their role as watchdogs to ensure that these issues of widespread endemic poverty is being highlighted properly. But I want to ask, I want Dr. Arowolo to help us to dissect. I want us to understand the normative theory of the press. He talks about the fact that the press takes on the toleration of the socio-political environment in which it exists. And to help us understand, is the media really capable of operating outside the coloration of the socio-political environment in which they exist? Can the media rise above the dysfunctional, dystopian reality of the Nigerian society? I want them to help us to deliberate on that. Yes, there's a lady, an undergraduate, who is willing to make a contribution.
afternoon. Okay, so according to the note I'm writing, so I saw the part that you wrote media hold the holding government accountable. So how will the media hold the government accountable? That's a question. Oh, my name is Okada Dabaya Chapeho. Okada Dabaya Chapeho. I'm 200. 200. Please appreciate that. That's good. Briefly as you could, you respond to all the issues raised by our postgraduate students, including the undergraduate students, as clearly as you can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the questions that I've taken on about 4 questions here, which I have noted here. I didn't catch the last one by the Berechi Favor. And yeah, okay, so let's move on. So now, the first question. Okay.
I wanted to make the last one clear to you.
Okay, make it clear.
How does the media hold the government accountable?
How do they hold government accountable? Good. Thank you very much for that, sir. Okay. Now, we have the very first question that sits on poverty, corruption. How are these connected? How can we handle this together? And I would not it together with the question of media being impoverished. If the media is being impoverished, that doesn't lower their ethical, shouldn't lower their ethical standard, ethical expectation. That is the first fact that we have to deal with. The second thing that we need to look at is the fact that what standard are you upholding as a journalist? What standard are you upholding as a journalist? Are you being sincere about what you're doing, or you just want to earn your change? If you just want to earn your change, then you will be misleading a lot of people. You'll be misleading the public. Now, I understand that there is no resources, which I have rightly identified, and many journalists could relate with that. Media, they're underpaying staff, they're underpaying workers, and journalists don't have the resources to do what they need to do. But there are alternative measures, which some journalists have rightly taken. We have people like Fisayo Soyombo, who actually left an established media just because he found the need to express himself through an easier platform, online media. You still require resources. You can apply for funds, grants. There are lots of grant bodies coming from the United States. It's just upset in that it is coming from a foreign nation and not even local to us. So media impoverishment is a limitation, but that is not the end of the line. Now the other question: how do you handle ethical dilemma as journalist? And I want to use my experience as a journalist to give this. I report on the education desk, and I worked for quite about 5 to 6 years before I fully went back into the classroom. Now, I found myself in a role earlier in my career that after reporting events, particularly for institutions, they would always want us to stay back and they'll give us something. The time came, things were going good for a while. The time came, there was need to report the bad side. And I realized that I'll be unable to do this if I continue to receive this, because they will all ask me questions. So that day I told my colleague, who is now in the United States, I told him that I'm not going for the after program meeting and I'm not collecting anything, because the truth has to be told. And I don't want a situation where they'll say, well, we gave you this, we gave you that. That is the start of it. So do not take whether white, brown, colored, uncolored, electronic envelope, whatsoever. Say no to it. That is the beginning of protecting your reputation. Your reputation is more important. You understand? When you protect your reputation, you'll be able to speak the truth. When you're able to speak the truth, you stand to be recognized. Fine, recognition may come at the detriment of you not making money. That is fine. But a good name, you agree with me, is better than gold or silver. Now to the last one is normative theory. Can the press, of course, based on normative theory, the press take correlation of whatever society they function within? That is true. But however, a dynamic press which is evolving and constantly working up to meeting the expectation of the people, like the likes of Premium Times, Cable, and more. What they will do is to rethink their model. If you rethink your model, your financial dependency changes. When your financial dependency changes, you will become you have some level of autonomy to make some decisions. You will be able to approach things in certain ways. And if you are able to do this, you will start making impact. And you are not just adapting yourself, you are not just taking coloration, but you are taking a coloration that will help improve even the system where you function within. So this is all about ideology. It's all about being intentional. It's all about being professional. It's all about adhering to the code of ethics, the standards of practice. And these are the kind of journalists that are awarded. These are the kind of journalists that are invited to global pedestals where they can offer insights and contribute meaningfully to debates, not those who do an journalism, not those who report press releases. All you do is to sit. In fact, for such journalists, wouldn't they themselves be ashamed of themselves? That all you do is to collect content that has been prepared and you just change byline or you paraphrase. In fact, it is so bad that you use just AI to rejingle while retaining quotes. So the media can do more. As professionals, there's more expected from us. So I think that will be my answer to that. You can take coloration, but take it wisely.
Thank you, and thank you. Thank you so much. I would like to work with okay, you can bring that to the next round because of time. Thank you. Yes, sir. Questions from my colleagues. Thank you very much. Actually, this is not just a question, but it's more of an addition. Because I observed that only government normally come out with. Government come out with budget. Don't normally do problem. To letting the masses know to what extent those budgets have actually been implemented. Every ministries, departments, and agencies has public affairs. And it is mandatory on the part of government to always make their spendings, the implementation to all these public affairs in order to disseminate information to Nigerians. Then again, too, media equally has a challenge here. And what is the challenge? When are those days when media will always want to embark on investigative reporting? Media don't want to do that again, either as a result of being, I think as a result of funding, then as a result of the fact that investigative journalism very, very expensive. So I believe there should be a way where government can actually help the masses, and at the same time the masses, you can actually help the masses, and then media too can always do its job properly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, our chairman of the day. We continue to thank you for the leadership you have provided and you have continued to provide. Each time we call upon you, you are always there for us. I just want to comment on this salient question about the role of media in society. I would like to refer us to one statement that is very germane to the role of the journalist in society. And this is the statement: scratch a journalist, and you will find a reformer. Scratch a journalist, and you will find a reformer. Journalism is not just any other profession. that you go into and your sole aim to make money. You are supposed to be the conscience of the society. You are supposed to be one notch above society, where you can step back and say, society, the way you are going is not the right way. Why not let us have these alternatives? And that is why, if you look at section 22 of the 1999 Constitution and previous constitutions, the press, radio, and all other heads have the responsibility to hold government accountable. So it is not just a profession where you go into and you want to make money. Ironically, if you do not concentrate on making money, the money will find you at the end of the day. And that's why I always make reference to Premium Times. I've watched their style of journalism over a long time, and I've seen even the source of funding, the model they subscribe to, is not to have one influential millionaire putting down money.
Yes.
No. They get money from different sources. They get money from organizations, non-governmental organizations. They get money from foundations. And they will say directly, because we want to work on this project, can you, he made reference to Choyombo. Yes. So that is not the idea of just getting a billionaire to put down money. It will have its own consequences. If the Igbo family have a problem, they are not going to find it in the Guardian. It is natural. If the first family have problems, they are not going to find it in the Nation. So it's just natural. But if you have like the BBC format, which reduces the influence of one source of funding to a public kind of funding, then the influence that we are talking about will be reduced. And when we also offer solutions, I say government should do this, government should do that, it is antithetical. How will a government fund a media that will turn around to expose them? What the media should do is to uncover what government wants to cover, what big corporations want to cover, what unethical people want to cover, what unprofessional people want to cover. So do you now expect this set of people to fund the kind of media that we also they are undoing? So when we give these solutions and we look at some of these things that happen, we should factor in all of these factors. Because the media are supposed to be a little notch above the society. It is only then that we can have a vibrant media in society. Thank you.
Thank you. My dean is Professor of Investigation and Interpretation Reporting. Another round of applause. Now, Dr. Arowolo,
Yes, sir.
the final word from you, the final word, including if you have not answered a brief.
All right. So my final word would be, there is a challenge and deficiency in the system generally. There is a consistent and persistent gap between the town and the gown. By the time we're ready to introduce a new curriculum before the implementation and the actualization, it will become too late, that we're not catching up with the reality. I remember when the present curriculum was being designed, it was matching up with the reality, but by the time of implementation, it was too late. Now we have serious and emerging issues. I would encourage the education stakeholders to be more proactive and set a routine, maybe every four years, to review, to ensure that this is always matching up with the industry expectation, and to ensure that journalists are trained hands-on with ethical, code, so that even we should find a way of incorporating it and instilling this discipline in them, so that they don't get to industry and become pressurized. The model should also be taught in the classroom, so they can become independent enough. And for journalists who are already practicing, rethink it. Ask yourself the question, why am I actually a journalist? What is my purpose? If your purpose is to work to earn money and just report randomly without considering the fact, the truth, then you are the wrong person sitting on the right chair. So please rethink it, or give that space up to somebody who is serious about it. And do not discourage the younger one who wants to do the right thing. Don't let corruption continue. If it continues, your generation will pay for it too. So let's rethink this thing. This is just a sincere word. For the government, let the media breathe and let them do their work. They can only help you become a better leaders. You understand? So just work with them, collaborate with them, and let us all independently work. And public should ensure that they hold the government to account, hold even the journalists to account, and ask questions from the education stakeholders. And on this note, I would say thank you all for joining me. God bless you.
Thank you so much. We are grounded to that. And just my final remarks. Number one, take notes of the choice of the topic and directing the attention of our postgraduate students to this. That's what we do say in the social life cycle. Every generation has we observe that Dr. Arowolo's topic did not come from the sky. It came from the lived experiences and challenges of his time. During my time, the challenge was with the structural adjustment program.
Absolutely, Prof. It was an inspiration. It was an inspiration for my study. I collected your thesis and I used it to inspire my study. Thank you very much for mentioning that.
Thank you. Give a clap open. During Dr. Arowolo's time of thesis, there were several social intervention programs. Government was giving money on the street. Our Messiah, former vice president, was going around the market and they were sending money. Did we have data that speak to where these monies were going? Dr. Arowolo raised that issue. How many people actually connected? Can we have a register of those that are under social of the intervention of government? We seem not to have, and that's a challenge. The second issue is that multilateral organizations, they always force government to take loans for what has no substance. The World Bank in 2020, when they were COVID, they forced many nations to take loans. And these loans were not for projects, they were for distribution. And government arrangement of distribution is so poor that a useless minister of social investment will just corner everything. They were taking bales of naira to the marketplace to distribute without any record. It was not that they didn't distribute some of these amounts, but there were no records to back up their challenge. So I want to encourage our PhD students. Look at challenges in your own time.
Tie your research to it, and you are going to make greater impact. Influence of media on children, you have gone beyond that. Tie your research to the strategic SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. Tie it to the political in your environment, the economic challenge, social challenge, gender challenge, everything. I was telling somebody that we in communication, we communicate content using our different platforms or media. If I'm in advertising, my content will reflect what is happening in the society using the advertising media. You are a radio, reflect reality through your radio, and so on and so forth. Let this influence your choice of topic. Thank you. Secondly, observe Dr. Arowolo's methodological framework. Some were a base of 10% said, therefore 10% is wrong. 90% said, therefore 90% is right. No, that does not bring in the reality. We talked about realities in research. Realities are co-created, not that of the author alone, not that of data alone. Even data are interpreted, and it is the interpretation of the researcher that often shape what data are saying. Therefore, Dr. Arowolo combined several methods, which we call mixed methods. There was content analysis, both quantitative and qualitative, and there was discourse analysis of the content, and there were interview sessions, there were online interrogations of content, and the amalgamation of these several sources made the content, the finding, to be robust. Please take this as another lesson from our discussion today. Look at the choice of his theory. The title influenced the theory, media framing, and therefore it suggested easily that he was going to use the framing theory, of course, with the several couples of the framing theory, the agenda setting being their mother or grandmother. And so, when you are choosing your topic, let it also at least give indication as to the theoretical framework you are going to engage. Again, look at the research presentation. Today, we talk about aesthetics, meta presentation, visuals, infographics, and all of this. They make research reports interesting to read, and they make meaning easier to decipher. With mere look, visual of the data, you know what the data are saying. Let this be a guidance for you. Then number 4 is that dissemination. Your research at PhD is just the beginning. Dissemination is key. Dr. Arowolo has started doing even popular media dissemination. Many of us is fathers in academics. We limited ourselves to research publications in journals, in books, in chapters in books. He has gone to a higher level of advocacy using the data he accumulated from the field to write in the press, in the media, so that the ordinary man will be able to understand our research findings, so that our researches do not gather dust on the shelf. Take note of this. And I know the dean has told you, if he has not, I'm just taking this from him, each of the PhD candidates, minimum, the masters, minimum 2 research publications before you be awarded your degree, your dissertation. You must publish minimum twice. If it's a local journal, we are going to take it from the masters. Who was that my master students? Who we had published in an international journal? Let him stand up if he's still around. Okay, give him a clap, give him a clap. We have more than 4 papers now outside there in international media. And that's what we expect from you. For the PhD, it is 4. It is 4. 2 will have been fully published. 2 could be accepted for publication. And you must cite your supervisors and the lecturers within. Copiously. There's a journal I have here, around 15 articles. Less than 20% of the references are Nigerians and Africans. Guess where the rest came from? Europe, America, Asia. Is it that we in Nigeria are not working? No. We tend to think that what we are doing here is not global. Whereas knowledge is global and we use knowledge to solve local problems. It's not the white man's idea that will help us to solve our problem here. So you must reference us, your professors, and you must publish, co-publish, let's say, Fatonji, if I supervise it, and Olatunji, you must put my name. After you graduate, you can do with whatever you want to do with your thesis, but before you graduate, my name should feature. And finally, a question on ethical challenge. I want to revisit that to join it with my day's position. There are 2 contending ethical positions. One is ethical egoism, egoistic, being egoistic, and there is ethical altruism. When you are egoistic as a professional, of course, the ontological and teleological theories of ethics, if you are egoistic, you are looking of how to preserve your own interests. Your own interests. If I investigate, will they not kill me? If I'm killed, what happens to my wife and children? I would rather preserve my life for my wife and children and my family, rather than investigate and then expose myself to danger and nobody cares for me. That is an ego. It's a valid philosophical position. It means that you have made your choice just to preserve yourself, and you just live an ordinary life and you're going away. The second one is ethical altruism. When you are an altruistic professional, you are looking for the greater good of the greater number, larger good of the larger number. If we had not had altruism from the beginning of human evolution and agitation, society will have remained as it is, selfish and not making progress. Those who are prepared to look for the interests of others are those that are driven the society to this progressive height. And so, the choice is yours as a professional. You want to work in the larger interest of the society or in your own selfish interest. Selfishness is the greatest crime and undoing of mankind. I hope you want to make a difference. How can you combine that as a professional? Professor Jide and I had done some studies together. One was to look at the economic models, business models that are available as alternative sources of funding of the media, where you will not need to depend on the media for survival. When Dr. Arowolo was talking about how we should leave the media, government should leave the media alone and so on, it is born out of the understanding that government should allow you to operate freely. Even when they don't give you commercial advertisement, there are alternative sources. I just completed a paper on the power of the advertiser and the advertising power. And I saw that by and large, although advertisers have power, but there are alternative sources to the advertisers' fund. And so, if you want to change society, you don't have to depend on the same government for survival. That is the critical question for us as professionals and scholars. On this note, I want to say thank you for coming to this seminar. And we are looking forward to another one. Thank you. That's all. And that's today. Thank you so much. And that has brought us to the end of this. But before we go, we want to quickly say thank you to those who made today possible. First, we want to say thank you to the Vice Chancellor, the distinguished Professor Ibiyemi Ibilola Olatunji-Bello, MMI. Thank you so much for giving the approval to FSS. Thank you, so CFPR, FS captured. Thank you, Vice Distinguished Vice Chancellor, and thank you for our own day leadership. We must appreciate our day, Professor Jide, for making it for telling us yes. And of course, to our own daddy, moderator of today, Professor Rotimi Olatunji. Please let's appreciate for the beautiful remarks. Of course, our presenter for the day, Dr. Arowolo, we cannot thank you enough. Thank you for that brilliant presentation. Thank you for being for us. Thank you. We love to have you, the students. Thank you so much. Our head of department, thank you so much. CIPR, they are here. I can see Mr. David Person here. See Mr. Jerry. Let's appreciate that, please. Okay, Brother said we are wearing two caps, one as capital official and as a PhD candidate. Thank you for students. Thank you for coming. We should, especially our journalist in the house, Mr. Jura from these days here, the publisher of Front Page? Front Page newspaper is here, and among others. Please let's appreciate them. Since yesterday, a group of people have been, working behind the scene to make sure that we have this seminar, and that's the technical unit led by Adébísí. Thank you for your effort. Thank you to Mr. Clement and this gentleman here, Mr. Timothy. Thank you for all you do. We want to thank you, our cameraman, the photographers. Thank you so much. All our heads. While Prof was talking, the head of department journalism came in. That's Professor. Of course, it's Professor now. Please, that's pathetic. And also the head of department mass communication related, that's Dr. Saeed Adeyemo. Thank you for coming. We are grateful. Dr. Kabidat, I can cite you among others. Dr. Pani, he was acknowledged earlier. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we can't thank you enough. We have done us proud. By God's grace, next month we are going to meet last Wednesday of the month. Thank you, Dr. Saeed Adeyemo. Please let me appreciate it. It won't have been my fault. I am grateful. All right. The journalist has asked for a panel picture, so we want to put first, and then the topic question. Other scholars, please join. Show us rights of department.